Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Christos Xenofondos, Assistant Director for Administrative Services at the Rhode Island DOT and Chair of the AASHTO Committee on Performance-Based Management. Welcome to the quarterly joint meeting of the Committee on Performance-Based Management and of the Transportation Performance Management Technical Service Program. Thank you all for being here today. We have a great program, and I hope that you're all looking forward to it. We have many folks to thank as we begin our webinar today. First, a special thank you to our esteemed panel of state DOT CEOs, including AASHTO President Garrett Eucalitto from Connecticut DOT, Carlos Braceras from Utah DOT, and Therese Dominguez from New York State DOT, who will be discussing critical issues in transportation. We will be introducing each of them individually in a few minutes. I also want to thank the Vice Chair, Chin Wallace of Minnesota DOT, Secretary Karen Miller of Missouri DOT, and our entire Committee on Performance-Based Management Leadership Group for their participation in today's webinar and their volunteering efforts. As you know, AASHTO is a volunteer-based organization. As such, the more we give as a volunteer, the greater the return not only to our agencies, but to ourselves as well. We appreciate the hard work and dedication of all of our state DOT volunteers. Many thanks to Federal Highway, especially Ms. Smith-Jackson, for their partnership with AASHTO, the Committee on Performance-Based Management, and the entire performance management community. Unfortunately, Ms. is unable to join us today, and she won't be able to give us an update. Thanks to Anna McLaughlin and the entire AASHTO team for supporting the Committee on Performance-Based Management. And also special thanks to TRB for their partnership. We are going to be discussing the critical issues today, which is one of the TRB publications as well. Michael Grant from ICF represents our Transportation Research Board sister Standing Committee on Performance Management, AJE20, as chair of that committee. Our quarterly web calls aim to share AASHTO and committee information and updates with the members, stakeholders, and partners of our committee. Before we begin, note that links to the notes and slides from today's web call and webinar will be posted on the TPM portal, which is accessible at tpm-portal.com after today's call. We will kindly ask that you please mute yourself during the meeting to avoid distractions. We have reserved ample time for discussion today, and entering your information in the chat will help us organize that conversation. You'll also be able to unmute yourself or raise your hand later on if you wish to speak. We do have a great program planned today, and let's take a moment to review our agenda in more detail. First, Anna McLaughlin, the Program Director for Transportation Performance Management at AASHTO, will provide an update on behalf of AASHTO. It will be followed by a very special featured topic today of critical issues in transportation. As I teased earlier, our CEO panel includes current AASHTO President, Commissioner Garrett Eucalitto from Connecticut DOT, Executive Director of Utah DOT, Carlos Braceras, and Commissioner Therese Dominguez from New York State DOT. This topic is driven in part by the publication of TRB's Critical Issues in Transportation for 2024 and beyond. Last year, we had TRB's Executive Director, Victoria Sheehan, give us a preview of the critical issues today. And today, we'll be hearing from the other side of the coin, from the practitioner's side, from our state DOT CEOs. The themes we will hear about today are near and dear to my heart, as the Transportation Research Board's Executive Committee chose to focus on 5 critically important societal goals to meet this major challenge facing society: mitigating and responding to climate change, promoting equity and inclusion, increasing road safety, advancing public health, and building and sustaining a strong competitive economy. All 5 goals support the overarching aim of fostering a thriving society. As most of you have heard me stress many times before, community-centered transportation is central to our vision for how our agencies can evolve to better serve the needs of the communities we represent. Following the panel discussion and responses to your questions, Michael Grant, Chair of TRB AJ20, will preview topics of interest to the performance management community at the upcoming TRB Annual Meeting. Then we will transition into our AASHTO Committee on Performance-Based Management business meeting with reports from subcommittee, task force, and working groups. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's get started. Next slide, please. So first we'll have Anna, who is the Program Director for Transportation Program Management, and she serves as the AASHTO staff liaison for the Committee on Performance-Based Management. She's responsible for managing the work with the Committee on Planning and Committee on Data Management and Analytics as well. In this position, Anna provides leadership on AASHTO's policy and technical activities related to transportation, performance management, asset management, planning, and data management. She has over 20 years of experience working in transportation, particularly in the areas of transportation, demand management, micromobility, and active transportation. Anna?
Thank you so much, Christos. I appreciate the introduction. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see faces and names. Excited to be here to kind of wrap up the year with our last full committee meeting of the year. I have just a few things to talk about today. One, I just wanted to touch base on reauthorization. For many of you that were in St. Louis, you know that's been both a topic that we've been focusing on this year and a topic that we focused on in St. Louis. There's been a lot of folks that have been working diligently on from this committee along with our the Committee on Data Management and Analytics and the Committee on Planning, pulling together our priority issues for reauthorization. They were presented at the Transportation Policy Forum at the end of October, and then TPF members had until the 18th of November to send their written comments back to AASHTO. We are now working through those comments. So Susan is working with each of the liaisons. We are trying to remove duplication, trying to streamline it, remove any conflicts in there. And so that is still a work in progress that we're going to be working on through December and January, hoping to have that set of white papers finalized by the Washington briefing. At the same time, all of our modal councils are also working on their white papers. So those will also be presented at TPF at the Washington briefing. I'll put a link to the Washington briefing. Registration is up. We now have information on that. It will be here in DC, February 3rd through 6th. So I'll share the link in the chat to that. I think I will see some of you there. The other thing I wanted to mention too, and I'm going to share a link as well. Once I'm done talking, I'll put some links in the chat. As you know, and we're honored today, we have Commissioner Eucalitto with us, our new AASHTO president. And I have been telling, like, one of the things that we are sharing here at AASHTO is our new presidential emphasis areas. So they have been released. We've developed, they're on the website, and we have a little flyer. I will share those with everybody. And Commissioner Eucalitto, you can even pop in and talk about them if you want to, but I'm just going to give a broad just overview. I will share them for everyone to see, but it is something that this committee will be focusing on, right? Like, we want to tie the work that we're doing to our presidential emphasis areas each year. And we're really going to be continuing our conversations and our discussions on safety. Centering safety is the theme, both for safer communities, safer users, safer workers. So that'll be something that kind of comes up in our discussions and the work that we're doing in the upcoming year. And the other area of focus is focusing on IIJA successes and building momentum for reauthorization. I think, you know, as we go into the new year, how are we, you know, telling the story of what this reauthorization, how important it is, and the benefit it brings across the board. So I will share that with everyone. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was I'm making some progress, folks, on hiring some staff. I know I have been a little overextended and I've been sometimes hard to pin down, but we have offers out to folks, and I'm going to have new staff be fully staffed up in January. I'm very excited about it. But I will be sending out our 2025 committee meetings and getting those on the calendars. I know I have for all of our subcommittees, work groups, task force. So I'll be working before the Christmas break-ish to get those on everybody's calendars, a whole new series for 2025. Just be on the lookout for those. And I will be hopefully introducing new staff to everyone in January, which I'm very excited about. And that's all I had, Christos. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. Glad to hear that the hiring of the staff is progressing along as well, and that you'll be able to get some help. Any questions for Anna before we turn over to our panel? Lori, I don't see any questions in the chat.
No questions in the chat at this moment.
Do we see any hands up?
No.
If not, then with that, I will turn it over to Yana Park, President and CEO of Spival Partners. And Yana and her team support the Committee on Performance-Based Management, and it is with their help that we are able to have all these webinars and the great newsletter that we put out in the portal. Yana has been kind enough to volunteer and help us with moderating the panel. Yana?
All right. Thank you, Christos. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this important discussion on critical issues in transportation. As Christos mentioned, the CEO panel will delve into the challenges and opportunities shaping the future of transportation. We'll begin by introducing our distinguished speakers, followed by their opening remarks to set the stage for our conversation. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Garrett Eucalitto, the current president of the American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials, AASHTO, and Commissioner of Connecticut Department of Transportation. As Commissioner, Garrett leads one of Connecticut's largest state agencies, overseeing a team of over 3,300 professionals and managing an annual budget of nearly $3 billion. Under his leadership, Connecticut DOT is committed to providing a safe, efficient, and sustainable intermodal transportation network that enhances quality of life across the state. Garrett's leadership extends beyond Connecticut. He was selected by his peers to serve as AASHTO's president, where he advocates for state transportation priorities on a national level. Additionally, he serves on the executive committee of the Transportation Research Board, sits on the executive committee of the Northeast Corridor Commission, chairs Connecticut's Vision Zero Council dedicated to eliminating traffic fatalities. Previously, he served as president of the Northeast Association of State Transportation Officials. Before his role at Connecticut DOT, Garrett held influential positions as Transportation Program Director at the National Governors Association in Washington, D.C., and as Undersecretary of Comprehensive Planning and Intergovernmental Policy at the Connecticut Office of Policy and Management. Garrett, we're honored to have you with us today. I now invite you to share your opening remarks on this critical topic.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to join the call today. So when I was given the opportunity to talk today about the critical issues, I went back and thought about the TRB publication on critical issues that was published. And when that came out, I was really excited to see the societal goals that were all listed there and the pie chart of how it was phrased, because when you look at all those societal goals, all of them are directly impacting one another. They can't be looked at in isolation. Because at first, some of my staff questioned, well, if safety is on there and public health is on there, aren't they the same thing? And you have climate, isn't that tied to those as well? And I had to stop them and explain to them, like, look, yes, there are definite connections between each of those wedges of that pie. But our job is to recognize that every single one of those goals is it's incumbent on us to advance all of those goals, because without them, the whole pie is going to crumble. It's going to be like an apple pie that's all soggy and wet, and the top's caving in. And it's often something that we at the state DOT level, the focus is on climate in a silo, or the focus is on safety in a silo. And I think this critical issues focus really does force us to take a step back and look at all of those, because public health is tailpipe emissions whether you believe in man-made climate change or not, the pollutants, the particulate matter coming out of the vehicles' tailpipes is causing a public health impact on individuals, causing morbidity and causing people to end up in the hospital. So that is something that we need to focus on. And then it's tied to safety. It's tied to the safety of individuals, who may develop pre-existing or may develop health conditions, which impacts their safety going through our transportation system. And it's of course tied to climate. And all of that is tied to economic competitiveness too, because if you have an unhealthy community and a community that's impacted by climate, that impacts our economic competitiveness. Here in my state, increased flooding is impacting some of our industrial parts of our state. And now those businesses are facing repeated floods that are impacting their ability to compete. So those are the issues that I think, those societal goals. And then to take it up a little bit further and look at those critical issues that we either indirectly or directly are involved in, and how we can have some levers to help advance some of those societal goals. I was really excited to see that land use was one of those key areas, because it's something I struggle with on a daily basis. Is I really have very little control over land use in my perch at the state DOT, but I know it's one of the most important things that impacts us here in our agency daily. We're often chasing the decisions that are being made at the local level or at the state level by another state agency to try and catch the transportation system up to that land use decision that's being made. And if we can do a better job integrating what we're doing with those decisions before they're being made, it can help us reduce costs, long-term costs, to provide transit options, to help do a better job connecting the workforce to where the jobs are, or our workforce to come and work with us. And that's all tied into the governance and the infrastructure systems we're building. So, I'm really excited to try and evangelize this critical issues document that TRB did such an amazing job. We're going to hear from Carlos, who I know is intimately involved in it. And I'm not just saying that because he's on this, but you can see the imprint of individuals who have had a perch in state DOTs, and have that vision of, taking a step back and looking at how state DOTs are so critical to everything that happens in the life of everyday Americans. But also we recognize that we're only a part of the solution, and we need to do a better job interjecting ourselves where we're not being included today. So looking forward to the discussion and appreciate the opportunity to be here today.
All right, thank you, Garrett. Next, it's my privilege to introduce Carlos Braceras, the Executive Director of the Utah Department of Transportation. Carlos has been an integral part of UDOT since 1986, dedicating nearly 4 decades to advancing transportation excellence in Utah. Under his leadership, UDOT is working toward the ambitious goal of creating the safest transportation system in the world, one that provides choices for all users, allowing them to travel where they want, when they want, and how they want. This vision reflects his commitment to improving mobility and enhancing quality of life for all. Carlos has also played a pivotal role in fostering an organization that is highly trusted by its partners and the public, a testament to his focus on collaboration and transparency. His impressive list of accomplishments includes serving as Chair of the AASHTO Agency Administration Management Committee, Chair of the Center for Environmental Excellence Advisory Board, a board member and past president of AASHTO, a member and past chair of the TRB Executive Committee. Carlos, we're delighted to have you with us today. Thank you for joining the panel, and I now invite you to share your opening remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Hannah and Garrett and Therese. It's a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon, and good morning to some of you on the West Coast. It's really interesting to see this, what I'm thinking of as a convergence of our industry at all different levels, whether it be at the city level, county level, federal level, state level, and our associations kind of converging together around this idea of transitioning from, moving cars to moving people. And, this is, I was part of so I'll take the blame if needed, but I was part of the smaller group within the TRB Executive Committee that came up with this critical issues document. And TRB always produces a critical issues document. And, this is just the latest one. And Garrett, when you mentioned the pie, we've spent many, many hours arguing over this, and I think we drove Victoria just about completely crazy with us trying to come up with a way to visualize this this concept. And it's really, again, it's fundamentally the common denominator is people and communities, and the idea that our job, we used to think of as just moving cars between communities, between cities, and trying to do it as fast as possible, as opposed to being what I think of as community builders. And, we issue a challenge to our people at the Utah Department of Transportation to build the community of their dreams. Now, it's not the community of UDOT's dreams, it's the community of dreams for that individual community. And each community needs to know where they want to be, where they want to go, and we help them facilitate the conversation about, what is that vision that they have for their community. We call it at Utah the quality of life framework. We had a question from our legislators probably about 7-8 years ago. And they said, what are we getting for the investment we're putting in transportation? We're a relatively small population-wise state, but they're still making a fairly large, $2.4 billion every year contribution for transportation. But they wanted to know the outcome. And it was really a really great question, because the first reaction we in transportation jumped to, and I know I'm speaking to the performance management folks, is we talk about pavement smoothness, or we talk about bridge life or health, bridge health, or whatever it might be in our, reliability and mode splits. And quite honestly, those are things that matter to us, and we have to really focus on them. And, we manage our system with those, but we don't communicate to the public with those ideas. We communicate to the public about things that matter to them. And, I like to say that, I'll go back to when we were getting ready to host the 2002 Winter Olympics, we set a goal that transportation wouldn't be noticed. And I know that might sound like kind of a downer to people because, everyone wants to be on stage, everyone wants to be noticed. But quite frankly, when transportation's noticed, it's usually when it's not working. And when transportation is working just so smoothly, nobody really has to think about it. They can go where they want, when they want, how they want, and do so safely. And it's just this frictionless experience. And it facilitates the things that are important to people. It's important to be able to, have access to jobs, and for companies to be able to have access to markets for their products. That's the economy piece. It's important to have access to healthcare. We talked about health in the critical issues document. We also have it as one of our 4 quality of life pieces within the Utah DOT. And we use those 4 quality of life pieces to recommend projects that we work on. And we have criteria within each one of them. And so health is all, it is about the pollutants that cars put out and how we can address it, because air quality is a big deal in Utah. But it's also about, are we providing opportunities for active transportation? And when you look around the country, communities that have safe abilities to have active transportation, they live longer. They have a better quality of life. And it's also about access to that healthcare as well, so you can get to the best doctors when you need them. So health is a really important part. The other 3 parts for us is it's mobility. When you recognize that is the why we exist as DOTs, is to provide that mobility for those quality of life pieces. Mobility, health, we use the term connecting communities. And that's meant to be, yes, connecting A to B, but also realizing that transportation facilities in the past have been used to divide communities and separate communities of different, maybe economic classes, social classes, whatever it might be. And as we do projects now, we think about, okay, yes, we're working on a facility to go A to B, but we also have to think about connecting that community that the facility is going through. And then it's that economic development piece and recognizing that, when transportation works, the economy grows. And look at our GDP numbers versus our VMT numbers. And I know VMT I use it as a surrogate for mobility. We don't have a really good way to think about people mobility. We measure those VMTs every year. We all report that to the federal government, so we have that direct correlation. But over the last 75 years, there's a very, very clear correlation between our mobility and how our country's economy grows. And so those are the four things that we focus on to help really develop and grow communities of our dreams. And those are the quality of life frameworks. Those are the things people care about. So, it's, did I get home in time for my kid's soccer game? It's not whether or not, boy, that was a super bridge I just drove over, and I know I'm an engineer. I love those great bridges, but that doesn't resonate with people. And so this convergence of, I see TRB's critical issues. I see the AASHTO strategic plan, which is very much aligned with what we're talking about in critical issues. And if you look at the US DOT strategic plan as well, all three of those are very aligned, and the common denominator is people. And I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you, Carlos. And now it's my honor to introduce Commissioner Marie-Therese Dominguez of New York State Department of Transportation. As Commissioner, Marie-Therese plays a leading role in New York's ambitious effort to modernize its infrastructure, ensure a safe, reliable, and efficient transportation system for all, while fostering economic growth and opportunities across the state. At NYSTOT, she leads a dedicated team of over 8,520 professionals who are responsible for designing, constructing, operating, and maintaining an extensive transportation network. This network includes over 113,000 highway lane miles, 17,400 bridges, a 3,500-mile rail system, and hundreds of aviation facilities, seaports, and public transportation providers. In addition to her role within the agency, she's instrumental in coordinating New York's statewide emergency response efforts for events such as flooding and severe winter storms, showcasing her commitment to resilience and safety. Since 2019, Marie-Therese has also served as a commissioner of the Gateway Development Commission. In this capacity, she oversees the Hudson Tunnel Project, a transformative rail initiative designed to improve reliability, resilience, and capacity along the Northeast Corridor. This project includes constructing 2 new rail tunnels under the Hudson River and rehabilitating the existing North River Tunnel, which will ultimately provide 4 state-of-the-art tracks connecting New York and New Jersey. Marie-Therese also lends her expertise as a member of the board of the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, with over 25 years of experience across the transportation, water, and energy infrastructure sectors. Her career reflects a deep commitment to public service and sustainable infrastructure. Marie-Therese, we're delighted to have you here today. Thank you for joining us, and I now invite you to share your opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hina, thank you very much. Well, I really appreciate hearing from Garrett and Carlos, putting everything into context here. I will follow up as best I can to share a little bit of perspective with regard to TRB's critical issues document, because I think that I have the opportunity to currently serving on the executive committee for TRB, and it's been an honor of a lifetime, I have to say. But with the publication of this critical issues document, it really came into focus, certainly for all of us at New York State DOT, a number of the initiatives that we had been working on through our own strategic planning efforts, and we call ours Planning Forward. I don't know, Hina, if you all have the slide of the compass that I might have sent on. If you do, it'd be great to put it up. If not, don't worry about it. So one of our colleagues at in AASHTO uses the phrase quite frequently, the biggest form of flattery is to rip off and duplicate, right? So I will tell you that DOT, New York State DOT, has been, we published our 5-year strategic plan a couple of years ago, and it was, you can see the alignment on the critical issues circle. I think we refer to it as the circle of life for TRB. For purposes of New York State DOT, we look at it as a compass, because at the heart of the compass, our North Star is literally providing transportation for all. So Carlos talked about people. It's all about people. It's all about the communities that we serve. TRB captures it as a thriving society. But the bottom line is that, again, it's that human factor at the heart of everything that we're doing. You know, 30 years ago, we talked about moving people and goods. We're well beyond that. And what's exciting about all of these, regardless of how you capture all of this, whether it's a circle, a compass, it's the elements that are surrounding it all. Because by talking to communities and engaging directly with the citizens that we're serving, we're understanding exactly what they want to see out of their transportation alternatives and making sure that we provide it. And I provide this compass because there's some other elements around it that really kind of hone in on where we are today, I think, in transportation. Building off the incredible investment that we've had off of bipartisan infrastructure legislation. I'll give you an example of how New York has tried to put some of this into focus on some of the projects that we've been working on. But I'll go back to that heart, that transportation for all. For those of you that are Ted Lasso fans, you know, Danny Rojas used to say, football is life, right? So look at transportation for all as transportation is life. So no matter how you look at it, these elements are critical. So whether it's climate change, driving our economy forward, equity, which is so important, providing transportation for all, public health, safety, those are the foundational elements of everything. I'll try to frame it up because my colleagues have been very articulate in the elements of all of it. I'll give an example of what we're doing in New York State. With the I-81 project in Syracuse, it is one of those, it's an elevated, for those that don't know, it's an elevated viaduct interstate that runs literally through the heart of the city of Syracuse. It was built in the 60s. It is a relic of the time that it was built. It was really meant to make sure that we were completing the interstate system, which at its core was about our national defense. But in doing so, it was one of those projects, and Robert Moses was its designer, that fundamentally cut through various communities in the city of Syracuse, creating communities that were left behind. And the planning process was such that there wasn't that level of community engagement back then that we are fostering now. So as we looked at the for the last decade, I'll say maybe 2 decades at New York State DOT, we've recognized that the useful life of this viaduct is definitely coming to an end. And the question was, how do we go about not just rehabbing it, but what's a bigger vision for what could actually take place here? So we engaged in very extensive community discussions. And the long and the short of it is after an extensive EIS and community process, we are now undertaking a community grid project. And what we're doing is actually taking down eventually the viaduct that cuts through the city of Syracuse and creating a community grid, which is a boulevard that comes into the city of Syracuse, allowing people to move where they need to move, but also creating bike, pedestrian, transit options that haven't been there before. And then moving a number of the larger traffic that needs to go, because I-81 is a very important interstate that moves certainly people and freight north and south across the country. But we have now a loop around the city of Syracuse that was there before, but we're enhancing it to move it. It connects to our inland rail facilities, inland port, and really connects the people and freight in new and different ways. But importantly, the reason I wanted to highlight the compass here is as we move through the community engagement, in listening to the citizens who are most impacted by this project, and actually everybody, what came to light was not only are we baselining health, or not only are we looking at health in terms of construction, but the community said, look, we've lived with the remnants, as Garrett talked about, of the tailpipe, right? We have huge asthma concerns. People are dying in the community at higher rates. And how do we make sure that we're baselining the current health of the community, and then looking to see what the benefits are as we move traffic from downtown Syracuse and away from these neighborhoods that have been most impacted. Help us understand what those health benefits can be, and then let us help guide what that is. So bottom line is New York State DOT, in partnership with our colleagues at New York State Department of Health and others, and some of the hospitals that are there in the area, we've got a collaborative effort now to help pull all of that together and start to baseline some of these health impacts across the board. I think that'll be a game changer for us going forward in a number of areas. When you look at the opportunities in terms of economic abilities, we committed to this program and this project, and the state's commitment in advancing it was critical to some other economic decisions that were going on. So what I mean by that is Micron decided to locate a chip factory in Syracuse, recognizing that these transportation investments were being made, and the benefit of the transportation investments were of course for the community, but also, as we know, the ripple effect is on housing. We are literally going through the viaduct cuts through a housing community that is the oldest public housing community in the state of New York. By reconnecting the community in this way, where the housing authority now has the ability to invest in new ways. We'll have new housing as a result of all of this. They've advanced all their programs through HUD, et cetera. In addition to that, the city of Syracuse is actually investing in a number of their land use issues on how do we create more housing in the city of Syracuse. So the benefits of the initial investment of the transportation project have just been manifold. And Micron deciding to come to locate and build a huge production facility in Syracuse. A big portion of their decision was based on the fact that this level of investment was taking place by the state in terms of transportation. When we talk about things with regard to equity, one of the things that we're really focused on is a local hire provision that we were able to include in the project. That means people who have literally been separated, segregated as a result of the initial construction of the viaduct. There's legacy issues here. Kids, grandkids of the people that may have originally, and I know I've met some of them, worked on the project to construct the viaduct. Even though they lived in that neighborhood, their grandchildren are now, as a result of our local hire provision, are able to work on the project to build a new community grid. And it's just unbelievable. We've got the chief of the Onondaga Nation, which is adjacent to the city of Syracuse, is actually an iron worker, and his granddaughter is now working on the project. We've got young men and women that are coming in and working in the trades, labor trades, that are now seeing the benefits of all of this. And now we're creating generational opportunities for economic prosperity for these families that literally were depleted 70, 75 years ago, 50 years ago. So the opportunities are manifold. The climate impacts in terms of reduced emissions, building for resiliency. We've got a number of the Erie Canal is adjacent to all of this, so you can imagine all of the water impacts, the sewer impacts. We've been able to incorporate a number of things to actually help with better water and sewer for the city of Syracuse. The bottom line is it's all incorporated in the compass. If you look at climate change, you're looking at the economy, public health, safety, physical infrastructure, workforce, everything comes to play here. And certainly land use is part of that. Well, it's not specifically called out. And then how do we drive technology? How do we make sure that we're using the latest and greatest that we can put to use here? So data and capturing all the benefits is critical to all of it. All of this we call planning forward, but it's a basis for and an example of how do we move forward. We're doing this across the board with a number of our projects across the state, but I wanted to share with you what we're doing specifically on I-81 because it's an example of what TRB has captured in the critical issues.
Thank you, Marie-Therese. Next, we'll transition into an engaging discussion with our esteemed CEO panel. I'd like to invite them to share their insights, diverse perspectives, and strategic approaches to addressing the challenges shaping the transportation landscape today. To structure the conversation, we've provided the panelists with a set of key questions in advance. These questions will serve as the foundation for our exchange. We also encourage our audience to actively participate. Please feel free to enter your questions into the chat at any time during the discussion. We'll address them at the end of the panel in the order they're received. Let's get started with a broad and foundational question. What role does transportation play in fostering community goals, and how can it contribute to building a thriving, inclusive society? Who wants to go first?
I'll jump in quick on that. I mean, so I think what you heard from all of us is the integral role of transportation. I think we can't have progress as a society without transportation investments, right? I was talking to my staff recently and talking about how we can do a better job trying to recruit people to come work in state government because we know it's a very competitive marketplace. And we know engineers, when they're going into school to determine which branch of engineering they want to go into, they have a lot of options now. And so how do we pitch civil engineering and how do we pitch state government? And so talking about how every single individual in the entire country is impacted by the work we do every single day, whether you leave your house or not, whether you never walk out your door, you are impacted by what we do because goods are being delivered to your home. The energy and the water services that you receive are provided by individuals who are using our infrastructure to get to the reservoirs that are providing you with the water to get to the substations and make the repairs. So society can't exist without a well-functioning transportation infrastructure system. And so that's, I think, something that we need to often pause and reflect on because we're always caught in the moment of trying to get the job done that we sometimes fail to really sell ourselves and brag about what we do. Right, and to try and sell why you should come work for the state DOT. So I think that's, at the base level, what I would say is like how we contribute to that thriving society is we provide that foundation on which society can thrive in reality. Without us, we'd be a crumbling foundation for our society, and it would not be able to thrive. It would be, trying to grow a garden in a brownfield site, right? You would have you could throw as much fertilizer as you want there, but nothing's going to grow well. So.
Thanks, Garrett.
Yeah, I'll jump in again. We're going to stay in the same order. It looks like, unless Therese just pushes me off to the side. Therese mentioned a gentleman that I think it's important. If you haven't read The Power Broker about Robert Moses, it's a thick book, but it is important, I think, from a transportation professional to understand. There was a gentleman who was very goal-oriented, and had an incredible amount of power, more so than the city mayor of New York City and even the governor, in my opinion. But the way he did things was wrong. And, he was very focused on growing an economy, but a growing economy for a segment of the population, not for everyone. And there's a lot to be learned with how he did things, because I maintain that how we do things matters more than the end goal that we actually achieve. People will remember how they were treated forever. And so I really think that, that's an important lesson learned for all of us. But when I think about, I mentioned that we changed the common denominator when we think about transportation from cars, and yes, we also thought transit, but we thought moving cars to moving people and the things that people need. And when you change that common denominator, all of a sudden the role of a DOT becomes much larger. And you start getting involved in things that you never used to think was your swim lane. And I use that term because I had a colonel on the highway patrol many years ago telling me, when I was talking about transportation safety and I was talking about seatbelts, he said, stay in your swim lane. That's us. Well, they never could get a primary seatbelt law passed. We got it passed because the legislature thought all they wanted to do was write tickets. And when they saw us speaking, because we cared about the people that were getting killed. And so I don't stay in my swim lane anymore. But we're now involved in things like land use. And because we're growing so fast and our population is so concentrated, it's 8th most urbanized state in the country, which is crazy to think of. I grew up just outside of Manhattan, and here I am in Utah now, and it's more urbanized than where I was in northern Jersey. But my point is that rate of growth has been so scary for us that the legislature has now said that, when you're selecting projects, you have to take into account the way cities are growing. And so now cities are coming to us and they're asking questions about where they should put some of their high density development and where they locate it. And we're trying to, we now have influence on, if you locate this near a transit center, if you locate it near a high capacity roadway that has good access control, we're going to more favorably look at funding projects to help your community. And so we now have this role in helping communities. We don't make those decisions, but helping communities think about how they grow. Because fundamentally, how our communities grow will be dependent on how well mobility works and how expensive it is for society as a whole to be able to provide it. We're actually involved now, hasn't yet been fully disclosed, but we're getting involved in housing. I think you could talk to probably any state in the country, and housing affordability is a big deal. And we need to have more housing stock. And we are now a player in helping motivate and influence where some of these larger developments are taking place. And so we are now in the housing business. We're in the land use business. Like a lot of you, we're in the homeless business as well. And not necessarily the most desirable work for a lot of people. But so when we think about what is the role of transportation in a thriving society, I like to think of it, it's like, think about what are those values. We always go to, maybe travel time. But I want to go back to what I think we really care about, because when transportation works, we don't notice it. What is it that we value as a society? And, in Utah, we try to focus on that because everyone kind of says, oh, the good old days. Things were better back then. And that's not where we want to be. We want people looking forward to the future, to a vision in the future that's better than what we have today, because we all want things to be better for our children than they are today. And so we talk about things that people value: time with family and friends. We all just came off of Thanksgiving. And hopefully you didn't have any political strife in your Thanksgiving discussions, but you come away and everyone thinks that Thanksgiving is about the turkey. It's about the time you spend with your family and friends. And that's what I find value. It's access to recreation. It's access to great jobs. It's access to healthcare. It's access to education. It's clean air and clean water. We want ourselves and our loved ones to be healthy. And when we have all that, that's the good life. And that's the value that we're looking to help to provide to our society. And DOTs have a role in every one of those things I mentioned. And you may think, oh no, my job is, I'm a pavement designer. No, sorry. You're helping improve people's ability to have time with family and friends. And so as long as we can kind of keep focusing that that's our mission, all of a sudden those limitations we put on ourselves saying, oh no, I can't do that. That's not my role. All of a sudden you can say, wow, my world's a lot bigger. And I do have a bigger influence on the type of place I want to live. And so I really encourage everyone to take those, what we've put around ourselves, these things that limit us, these things that say, oh no, that's not my job, and say, no, it's not. Your job is to make a great society. And and DOTs are doers. We're the organizations that actually get things done. If you think about COVID 4 or 5 years ago, our DOTs were asked to step up and do things we've never done before. And why did the governors choose the DOTs to step up and do all these things? It's because we get shit done. Sorry, but we do.
Well, Carlos, I'll tee off of that 100%. We get stuff done. I always like to say we're problem solvers, because at the end of the day, the reason that, especially during COVID, and it's a great example, you know, there were a number of logistical issues and things needed to move. And, you know, a lot of DOTs had the capability, the know-how, and quite frankly, the professionalism and dedication to get things done. And so across the nation, I think you saw that. But the bottom line is that it doesn't matter what the problem is. People engaged in the transportation industry, and specifically state DOTs, were problem solvers. So in solving those problems, a number of those problems are access. And you focused on that, and that's exactly where I am laser focused, because it's access to transportation. So I don't care if you live in the Bronx, where there's an enormous density in the population, high density population. Believe it or not, people do not have access, safe access to transportation. So making sure that they've got direct access to an MTA station, a bus terminal, whatever it is, providing greater access, whether it's to transportation options, housing, school, everything that you talked about, healthcare, it's critical jobs. But as part of that, the other part of that, providing access, is access to green space. And, you know, I'm talking about the Bronx. If you've ever driven through the Bronx, I-95 goes right through it, Cross Bronx Expressway, et cetera. An enormous amount of the goods that are provided up and down the East Coast, and certainly out west, go through this corridor. But the people that live there are separated from the Bronx River, which is right there, which, believe it or not, has been rehabilitated in many, many ways over the course of the last 25 years, a lot of investment. And when we started doing a project at Hunts Point, which is an area in the Bronx that literally houses one of the largest food markets in the country, one that, you know, farmers and growers from Connecticut, from, you know, all the way up to Maine, come down and bring their goods to Hunts Point. And it literally goes not only across the city of New York, but all across New England. It's a game changer. You got a lot of trucks coming up and down 95, but the people who live in the Bronx couldn't actually access the river that's right next to them, because you got this corridor going right next to them. When we looked at how to solve some of these problems, about accessing Hunts Point, taking trucks off the local roadways, our big focus was getting direct access to the market and giving people who live in these neighborhoods access to the waterfront. So I don't care if you're living in Western New York and you're right next to a beautiful Finger Lake, or if you're in downtown, in the heart of the Bronx, making sure that you've got a connection to green space, to your school, to your transit station. That's what it's all about, providing that level of access. And when you talk about active transportation, that has to be a portion of it, no matter, and a big portion of it, to make sure that you've got all of the transportation modalities available to folks. anyway, it's just an example of how you can put all of this to work, but access is critical.
Thank you. I want to just focus on what Carlos said about that. He thought it might be more important how you deliver transportation than the potentially the outcome, you know, of the delivery. And we live in a system where all the measuring is on the outcome, or a lot of it is, right? What are you guys doing, or what are your thoughts on how can you demonstrate that you're doing a good job on that how? And especially because you all are managing giant organizations. So it's not like you can put your arms around a specific area. You've got to look at your whole system of how your organization is delivering. And so what are your thoughts on that?
I'm going to go first if I can steal something from Carlos, which I've actually learned from him over my past few years here at Connecticut DOT, and that I've actually been quoting him to my staff, which is, you know, going into a community after we've done a project and saying, would you have us back? That when I heard Carlos say that for the first time several years ago, I was like, that's perfect. And that's kind of how I've been trying to refocus our team here at Condot is, you know, it's not just about getting the project done. It's going and talking to the community. We've completely pivoted our approach towards public involvement. It used to just be, we had one meeting, we'd go into the town hall or city hall at, you know, at like 4 o'clock when people are still working, and that we checked the box saying we did public involvement, and that was it. And we had no customer service intake here in our agency, no like customer relations. So we flipped it on its head and went back to, or now do a model of extensive community engagement for no matter how large or how small the project is, different times of day. We created a public involvement unit. We have a new customer care center, and our project managers know, like, I talk to all the mayors and first selectmen and I ask them how we're doing. And when I go for the ribbon cutting on the project, you know, ask them like, how did it go? Like, what could we have done better? And like, you know, ready to work with us on the next project. Yes. Right. So that's how, like, changing that mindset of, you know, there was always this fear of like, I need to get my project delivered on time, on budget, or I'm going to get in trouble. And yes, I used to work in a state budget office, so I have that mindset, but it's also, if we don't have the confidence of the public and the elected officials who run the boots on the ground in our communities, then we will lose the confidence in the state house and with the governor. So we need to build that trust to continue to get the support for the state funding we need to advance our projects. Sorry for stealing your.
No, that's perfect. And trust is our currency, right? As in a public agency, that's the only thing we have. And we have you can lose it so quickly. The thing we have to always remember too is we are a monopoly. We don't have competition. You know, UDOT's been around for a little over 115 years, and we're going to be around for a long time. And you find yourself sometimes operating like a monopoly. In the private sector, even the big companies, they have competition. So they have to kind of treat their customers right. And that checkbox on public involvement is absolutely, you know, we're doing it a lot better than we ever did. You know, you think about the way we used to do it. It was a joke, but we're evolving every single day on this. And, you know, we could very easily, even though we don't intend to, and I know our people don't intend to, we could be coming off like bullies in a lot of these communities, even to the biggest cities. Now, I'm not sure about, you know, a city like New York City, Marine Tourist, but, you know, Salt Lake City, the biggest city in Utah, you know, we have a bigger budget than they have. And, you know, we could come across treating them like bullies. And so you have to be very, very aware of how you're treating them. We're working hard right now on something we call customer experience. And, you know, we've just recently hired a couple people with the titles of customer experience. And so we're very focused on not even just during projects, but every opportunity we get to interface with the public, or the elected official, a government, local government, that is an opportunity. That is an opportunity to build trust. That's an opportunity to develop relationships, and it's an opportunity to learn and hear how we're doing. And if you create an environment where people are willing to tell you to your face, you know, you guys were jerks on that last project, and you're like, what? And why? How? In what way? And you don't become defensive. You say, wow, thank you for telling me that. How did we do this? How can we do it better? And you're gonna step by step be building trust. And so, you know, I use that test that Garrett mentioned. Would you have us back again? That works better in smaller communities than large cities, because when you're in a smaller community, you are the show. You know, I tell people, you know, we're on stage every single day when we're doing a project, but you are the show in town, and every single person gets an opportunity to experience, in a good way or a bad way, what that is like. To the simple point, I remember driving through one of our projects, and this is many years ago, and the first person you see on the project is the flagger. Think about it's not a very glorious position. And you're out there all day long. It was in the middle of summer, probably 100 degrees, and you're probably not getting a lot of full hand finger waves from people. And this gentleman was out there with a genuine smile saying thank you to every car that went by. And so I had to pull over and just, you know, get a chance to talk with him. But that is UDOT. This is a subcontractor to a contractor. So very removed from us. He probably never heard our me talk or our strategic plan. But that's our currency. He's spending currency out there or earning currency for us. And so it's that touch, that contact we have with the customer happens everywhere. And so the more we can do to help people appreciate and understand the importance of every opportunity to exchange with people, the better it is. So, and another measure I would say is if your legislature is willing to continue to increase your budget and willing to ask you to take on new challenges, those are direct results of earning trust and respect. And you can say, you know what, I think we're doing, you know, even though they're asking us to do more, we're not getting more people, we're getting more money, we're getting more responsibility. But that's a real measure that you're doing things in the right way.
Marie-Therese?
I think I'll just I'll do a little bit of a connector between what Garrett and Carlos said. One thing with regard to the community and public engagement piece is for New York State DOT, it was really that bridge of not just going through an environmental, an EIS or an EA process where you're, you know, engaging people in quote unquote public meetings, but making those public meetings meaningful at times that people can actually attend. But the corollary that we're pulling together is, especially on some of our bigger projects, is establishing, and you're calling them customer experience personnel, Carlos. We're doing it in terms of outreach offices. And instead of having an outreach team just at the beginning phases of the project and to the conclusion of an EIS, we're carrying it through the course of the entire project. So it doesn't matter what phase of the project we're in, there's an outreach office that's constantly sharing information on social media. We're at every public engagement that we could possibly be at, whether it's a local farmer's market or a street fair or a job fair, anything, any public engagement that our outreach office can participate in. And then there's a front door. Anybody can come in, ask questions. How can I get a job? When are you guys going to close this lane? When are you going to open it? Whatever it is, but that level of messaging, of connected, and we have them in multiple portions, especially if the project footprint is pretty big, we'll have more than one outreach office and we have a whole team supporting that. But having that level of consistency all the way through the end of a project and then getting that feedback constantly on a daily basis that's what we're adjusting for and continually investing in as we hear from the public on how things are going. Because we all know it's a constant thing, and then the press is also there asking questions, but we've got the immediate information and it helps us keep sharp, and it helps inform our project delivery process as well. But I think that's something that it's not as easily captured on a dashboard per se, in terms of data collection. The other element to your question, Huna, is, New York State DOT, we've established a chief data office with the chief data officer we all collect an enormous amount of data. But we want to make sure that it's actionable data, that we're actually interpreting it and using it, not just for statistical analysis, which is obviously very helpful, but making it meaningful to inform our projects on how we're actually delivering for the public. Because if we're providing transportation for all, what does that mean in terms of the numbers? What does that mean in terms of how we're taking our data and analyzing it effectively to make sure that we're translating that into meaningful products as well?
Yeah, Marie-Therese, I want to amplify that, because I think the other component of trust is competency. And we demonstrate competency by being able to provide that data, reliable, trusted data of performance, of how well we're doing. And I think that's something that this committee has been really instrumental in helping our transportation agencies do. Is, we have an enormous amount of data, but it's this committee that needs to turn that data into knowledge and into something that we can act on. We use that data to help inform policymakers. And if they know they can trust the data, they believe we're competent, then that trust only grows.
Thanks everyone for I think I got out of it. After action, after project reviews, building trust, building engagement with your communities, and being able to show that. All right, well, we're running out of time, so I want a quick answer to this question, which is, are you guys optimistic about the future of transportation as you sit today?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Transportation is life.
Yes, I am incredibly optimistic, because
Okay.
I think we've made the transition to be more meaningful to people. And so I'm really optimistic.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I think that's all the time we have today. So thank you for joining us to this CEO panel. And I'm going to turn it over to Christos.
But I'm going to exercise chair's privilege, Yana, because we have such a great conversation and such a great discussion. And I really, if our CEOs still have time to be with us, we'd love to turn it over to our attendees and see if they have some additional questions to that. Carlos, love how you brought the committee. I know you love the Committee on Performance-Based Management, since you are one of the founding fathers of performance management. But this is so true about, using the data that we have to build trust and to be able to really tell our story. So do we have any questions or in the chat? I don't see anything, or anybody raise their hands with questions, because this is a great opportunity that we have to continue advancing. What is relatively new for us, right? So we have been so infrastructure focused for so many years. And now we are realizing that infrastructure, as important as it is, it's not the end, but it's a means to an end. And that end is really the mobility and how we serve our society and our people. No. So I'll ask a question then, one last question, since I don't see any in the chat, as we move forward as a committee on performance-based management, and some of our subcommittees is asset management and risk management and organizational excellence and emerging performance topics. And we are all cognizant of the new North Star that we have created for that we are looking for our agencies, which is the, society and people. How do you see the role of this committee to support our agencies and the AASHTO community in general towards this direction?
I'll let Carlos go first this time.
Okay, I'll jump in here because I think it's finding those connections now between those societal values that we're striving for and the things that we're, I'll say tactically managing at a Department of Transportation. So, we all want to have the smoothest road. Well, how smooth should the pavement be? Well, I think you talk to a pavement engineer, the smoother the better. Well, why? What's the economics? What's the cost, the long-term cost of ownership of a pavement condition at a 90 versus an 80? And why should we try for a 90 versus an 80? And how does that change based on the speeds of the facility? How about safety? We haven't yet done as good a job as I believe we can of relating safety, crash factors back to actually infrastructure conditions. And so think about all the other things in society that we value and think about taking those performance measures and somehow finding correlations or reasons why those measures are, if we move this outcome measure, it's going to improve the health in our society. And so making those connections, I think, is going to be a next key step. And I'm challenging the committee to that because I have no idea how to do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And one thing that I've struggled with internally at our agency is trying to convey the benefits of what we are doing, because going in and talking about pavement condition or which bridges, like we have great data to show that the investments that we're making in bridges are or bending the curve in terms of deficiencies. But what do I tell a state legislator in terms of how that investment that they're giving us, that they're trusting us with, is equating to improvements in quality of life? Or our agency just changed our mission statement to be improving lives through transportation. So how can I show that? And that's it's not the specific quantitative data that I think a lot of us are comfortable in. We need to be out of that comfort zone and come up with some new performance measures we can use to show that to legislators, to the public, and be able to explain it in a non-engineering way.
Thank you, Garrett. Therese?
I think those are both fantastic answers. I think they're spot on. The bottom line is we have to be able on an annual basis, be able to prove to the citizens of our state that the work and the investment that they're putting forward in their taxpayer dollars is paying off. So that's both the condition of the transportation system, but then also what they want to see out of it. And so that's where it all comes together. And that's where the performance-based information is so critical. And I commend the committee. You all are foundational to telling this larger story. It helps all state DOTs, but it's also very influential as we look to formulate our own narratives for the citizens that we serve. So just wanted to underscore the work that you do and say thank you.
And this gave the opportunity for some of our attendees to actually formulate some questions. So if you have time, we do have some questions that we can go over. What do you see as key aspects to focus on in terms of people in our organizations? Because, we are made out of people as organizations, and, in order for us to be able to move forward, we really need to focus on our people as well.
I can start. So with our strategic plan, our number one goal is investing in our people and our organization. And as we plan forward for New York State DOT, that is at the core of everything that we're doing. You heard Garrett and Carlos refer to some of the investments we're making in workforce development. One of the things that's been critical is understanding that from New York State in the civil service system, our pay for our engineers in particular, as well as our operations and maintenance folks, was not where it needed to be. We were literally not paying our CDL drivers what they what they needed and deserved. So we fixed that a couple of years ago, and then just yesterday, actually, the governor made an announcement in New York State addressing a number of titles, most specifically engineers, to really help with the recruiting and the retention of engineers into public service. And it wasn't just for DOT. We led the information campaign, I'll say, but it wasn't hard. Our governor was very, very supportive of it. But it translated to a number of other state agencies that also hire a number of engineers and other licensed professionals. So the bottom line is workforce is critical. People that are interested in really contributing and making a difference, if they get a taste of public service and understanding that as a state DOT, we are the owner operators of our systems, we make the decisions. How we go about doing that influences and directs any other outcome is a position that very few have. In other words, consultants and contractors are our partners and our collaborators, but at the end of the day, it's the state DOT and our opportunity to drive those programs and really achieve these societal goals that we're talking about. That's where the rubber meets the road. And so having a workforce, a talented professional workforce, and continuing to recruit into those ranks, I think is critical.
I know Garrett has to leave in 5 minutes, so I do have a question for Garrett, and then we can, close as we get to close to 3:30. Do you see a path forward that is based on positive incentives only to achieve the mobility transformation that we need?
I see that in the chat. That's from Ed. So
that's why I had to ask it to you.
Hi, Ed. So I think there is, and sometimes people aren't aware of some of the positive incentives that are out there, and it's something I'm going to be focused on this upcoming legislative session. When I look at the insurance industry, there are incentives out there for people who drive safe on the roadways or more safe, because if you opt into the positive reinforcement system where they are monitoring your driving habits, you actually get a discount on your insurance. It can be 10, 15, sometimes close to 20% discount on your insurance rates. And they're not doing that out of the goodness of their heart. They're doing it because it will help save them money as an insurance company, because they're seeing costs increase due to the complexity of vehicles. When a vehicle is in a crash, it costs a lot more for repairs. But, that is an incentive to drive slower, greater stopping distance, so you don't have hard braking. We can pilot and test some of those things out on mobility too, where if employers can offer transit benefits or multimodal benefits, not just a free parking spot like we have for our employees here. I've been really pushing, like, why don't we give people the option of, or they can get a transit pass each month. That's something we have to negotiate with our unions, but it's why not give them that positive benefit they can select from, instead of just saying, encouraging people to drive to work in a single occupant vehicle, or let's give them another option where it's a transit pass. And then when we launched our new our bus rapid transit system, we did the, bring your ticket to using our BRT system to some of the local businesses near the transit stops, and they were giving people discounts for using transit to go to their business. And so that's kind of reaffirming the use of transit to get around the system, to patronize those local businesses that were impacted by the construction for so long. So those are some of those positive things we could be doing. That's just thinking small. I'm sure there's much bigger ones we could be doing.
Just one closing thought from each one of you, please, on as we are looking at this transformation and some of the projects that we are working on, both, through our committee and AASHTO and also through the PRC, the World Road Association, and TRB, is the transport agency of the future and the transformation that needs to take place as we are redefining our North Star. What are the changes that you see that need to happen to our organization? What transformations do you see must take place? And Garrett, I know you have to go, so we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me on today. I apologize for having to jump off in a second, but I think we are a large organization. We're one of our larger state agencies, and we're very rigid with job specifications and what the qualifications are to get into a job here at our state DOT. So we need to take a hard look at those job specs and try and open them up because it's very rigid. We have not adapted to the reality of we don't just need only engineers working in this half of the agency. I need people who know how to do data analytics, and I need people who can understand how to utilize and harness AI and protect us from what can go wrong. I need those skill sets, but the way our job specs are written really doesn't allow that ingenuity or flexibility. I know some states have a lot more flexibility than others. Ours is very rigid, so that's something that I'm really going to be focused on, is trying to modernize our agency to be ready for the next 20 years of changes on our transportation horizon and make it a place that people want to come to work and stay at when they get here.
Thank you, Garrett. Marie-Therese?
I think that I think part of the challenge moving forward is organizational. Just like we're talking about how now transportation is focused on our communities, providing mobility and really focused on people. That needs to be reflected in our organizational structures as well. And I think one of the things that in transportation we're very comfortable with is literally very defined black and white parameters of what am I going to look at, whether that's project, policy, etc. And what I think this, the critical issues document brings to life is there's so much. I like to say, we're not your grandfather's, we're not your father's DOT anymore. We're a much more integrated service delivery in so many different ways. It's operations and service, but we're literally providing elements and connecting that. We are the connective tissue to so many other elements. And I think that's what's so critical about the discussion that you had today around the critical issues document, whether it's health, economic drivers, etc. You have pulling this all together within a state agency, making sure that the department itself understands and reflects that, but is also organized in such a way that everybody understands what part they play in helping deliver that. It's a challenge, but one that we're undertaking right now. And I think you're going to see that reflected globally moving forward over the course of the next decade.
We like to say that we started as a contractor, constructor, the Department of Public Works. We evolved into the Department of Transportation, where we have more project managers. And I think the next evolution we're seeing now, we're becoming mobility managers, So,
well said.
Carlos?
Agree with that, Christos. I'd say, if you read the book, Thomas Freeman's book, Thank You for Being Late, we live in a world of accelerations. And so from my position, I see my job as really, one, setting a vision for the future, and then helping create a culture of psychological safety where people are safe to try things and because we're going to have to make decisions faster than we've ever been done before. A successful future transportation agency needs to be nimble, adaptable, and has to move fast. And we're no longer going to have the luxury that we've had in the past to kind of sit on things, think things through as well as we'd like to. And we're going to be forced to make decisions before we're, especially as engineers, comfortable making some of these decisions. And so that means you're going to be making mistakes. And you have to create a place where people know it's okay if I make a mistake. I'm going to learn from it, and my team will have my back and support me. And we're going to learn and move forward. And I think that's going to be critical for us as agencies, is to create that culture, being willing to move forward fast and adapt, because things are going to change faster going forward than they've been changing recently. And I know everyone probably feels things are changing way too fast, and they all think that we all want to have it, oh, let's get back to normal, let's have things settle down, and when they get back to normal, I'll be able to catch my breath. They're never going to get back to normal. There's no normal. And the future is going to be even faster than we're seeing it today. So the organization that's going to be successful is going to be one that not only acknowledges that, but is agile and nimble enough to be able to thrive in that environment. And you don't get anxious when you're in that environment. You realize that that's normal. So.
We cannot thank all three of you enough for giving us the time today, for being here with us, for the thoughtful conversation, and for really allowing us to dig deeper into some of these topics, because and Marie-Therese, Carlos knows this because we've tapped onto him a number of times now, for these conversations. But this is something that we keep revisiting, because you can never have enough of this conversation when it comes to transitioning us into that societal-based, societal-focused organization. So a huge thank you again for sharing your thoughts and your visions. And we greatly appreciate having you here, and look forward to seeing you at TRB.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so Laura, we're going to jump over to Michael now.
Yes, so Michael did have to drop off. So if you still want to cover the annual sessions of interest, I can do those as the communications lead for the committee. Or I would let folks know that we do have all of these outlined in the TPM newsletter, the fall TPM newsletter.
Excellent. So because we do want people to read the TPM newsletter, because it has a lot of great information there as well. So we'll do that. Well, we're going to those three. So encourage everybody to really attend there's a lot of great workshops and sessions that are taking place at TRB. So I hope that you will have the opportunity to really be able to attend and see everybody there as well to the sessions and workshops. So next we're going to go through some of the subcommittee and task force updates. We'll probably go a little bit fast over them as well. So we're going to start with policy and rulemaking. Ryan and Lori, unfortunately, were not able to join us today. So Anna is going to give the update on that.
Thanks, Christos. And this will be quick. I already did talk about reauthorization and kind of where we are. The white paper that we worked on was presented at the annual meeting, like I said, and now it's in the process of refining. When we have that in a new draft version, that'll be circulated to the committee. And I will share that as soon as we have it. And then I'm sure Mike is going to talk about the asset management NPRM that is out. There was a meeting yesterday. But I do want to put a plug in for next Tuesday's meeting of the Policy and Rulemaking Committee. We're meeting Eastern Time 1 to 2, and we'll be talking about the NPRM as well. So if you are able to join, there is Zoom information available, or if you'd like me to send you the invite to that, please let me know.
I did put that in the chat for you, Anna.
Lori, thank you so much. Perfect. William also put in the chat that there's talking about this in a number of different places. We'll also be talking in the subcommittee on risk management. And
And
that
it's
is
not,
on Monday, and I'll let William talk about that.
yeah, and just so that people know, this is not a duplication, because each one of the committees provides a different, of the subcommittees is bringing a different focus to the conversation. So you are not listening over the same conversation. So
Thanks, Christos.
thank you, Anna. All right. Subcommittee on Research, we have Edgardo Block from Connecticut DOT and Alma Mkanovich from Georgia DOT. Ed, are you going to give the update, or
I will. I didn't know if Alma was online and willing to do it. We submitted this list of research needs statements to NCHRP, and thank you very much to Anna McLaughlin for putting that on behalf of the committee. So be looking, hopefully, for some of these, if not all, to be approved to begin work on the subject. And they span the very broad areas of our performance-based management committee. So there's analysis of demand for non-auto travel, implementing effective community resilience performance management, guidance on measuring organizational efficiency of state DOTs, aligning the relationship between asset management, planning, and programming. And that deals with broadening objectives of mobility and climate resilience. And fifth, what we think is a very important activity for performance management, and that is work towards a guidance document or a guide from a manual or a blue book. We're already calling it a blue book on the discipline of performance management that can be an authoritative document that we can all follow. It should be applicable and adaptable to our changing reality, as we know, as Secretary Braceras mentioned, things are accelerating, and that's what we're aiming for, and we've put that need forward. So, and thanks to everybody who came to both research symposia and provided feedback, or in some cases wrote and edited these research needs statements. So we're looking forward to a positive balloting process. So we'll be reminding everybody to support these as they come up for balloting at state DOTs in particular. And that's what we came up with in 2024. And I cannot thank Alma and Anna and Hiana, all three of them, and all the other associated staff in getting to this point. So thank you very much to all those individuals in particular, and everybody else who participated.
And huge thank you to all of you, Edgardo, and also to Anna and Alma and Spikebone Partners for the work that has been done. This is great that we are able year after year to put some really great research statements. So what I'm going to say, and you're not going to be seeing them the next few weeks, but please start talking to your research managers in your agencies to make sure that they prioritize these projects from the Committee on Performance-Based Management.
Absolutely. I want to say one more thing, and that is the clock never stops. So this is the very good time, and we'll be to start thinking about synthesis topics in particular, because the deadline is the first one that we hit in February, but also to start thinking about research needs statement. We're now heading into TRB. Alma and I went last year to make approaches to the TRB committees so that they can participate in the process, and we can steer the needs of the broad community through our committee process and prioritize them for submittal. I don't know if you want to say anything, Alma, but I will stop there.
Just one more time, to thank everybody who supported our efforts. It is really a huge effort to, solicit the ideas and brainstorm ideas and then to write them up. So all the people that attended our meetings, that helped us with our work, thank you so very much. We really depend on you and your help.
Thank you, Alma and Edgardo. So Jihan, would you like to give the update on organization and management?
I do not see Jahan or Gary on the
Okay.
call. I know David had to drop off.
So we can email the update on the ones that are not here. So next we have the task force on emerging performance area, and it's being led by Kelly and Diana. Diana is switching hats, so she has left Minnesota DOT and she's now at the Texas Transportation Institute. And as such, she will not be able to continue as a co-chair of the task force, but she will continue, but she would be able to continue bringing her energy as a member of the task force. And therefore, and she's going to give us the update today. But at the same time, I wanted to let people know that we will be looking for a new co-chair for the task force on emerging performance areas. Diana?
Thank you. And I have to say, listening to those state DOT leaders reminded me how wonderful a career I had working for the Minnesota DOT, but so I'm still adjusting to my new job, but it will all be good. I keep this slide in here about the background, even though most folks who've seen the presentation have seen this before, just to remind people that this was started a couple of years ago as we're starting to want to focus on broader holistic societal goals, exactly what folks talked about in the presentation, the featured presentation today. And so we have a task force on this. Next slide. Oh, geez. Okay, and so we're currently focusing on equity and affordability, but as part of the overall arching idea of ACE, accessibility and mobility, multimodal mobility, climate and GHG and carbon reduction, and then equity and affordability. And that was because based on the number of people we have participating, it made sense to focus only on one for now. Next slide. So our current activities, we actually had some guest speakers in July and got really nice feedback about how much folks liked hearing from them. So in November, we had another set of guest speakers. I actually walked down the hall at MnDOT when I was still there and asked for these three ladies to give a presentation on MnDOT's Advancing Equity Initiative work, and that was really good. And then now just yesterday, we had a small attendance, but a really good meeting hearing from Nellie Moore and Christopher Carter. Nellie Moore is with the lab that they actually are both called the lab, but from district DOT, but Christopher Carter at Massachusetts DOT, an office that he has started called the Office of Possibility. And everyone thought that was a really, really nice name for what he's trying to do. So the next meeting we will cancel for January because it's right at TRB time and regroup in February. Next slide. Okay, so Edgardo just went over the currently submitted research for this year, but for ours, we like to remind ourselves of the success the task force has had for fiscal 24 and 25. We have 3 research statements that have been funded, and so those are in different stages of being underway. And then the 2 that were on Edgardo's list for this next year. Next slide. Oh, that's all we have. Monthly meetings the first Wednesday of the month, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Used to have Kelly and my name on here, but now just Kelly and looking for a co-chair, but I will hope to be at every meeting participating. Thanks so much.
Christos, you are muted.
Of course I am muted. I was saying that if people are interested, to please get in touch with us on this one. All right. And next we have the Subcommittee on Risk Management. William, are you giving the update or is Nathan?
I am, sorry. I'm actively making my presentation for Monday's meeting. I want to thank Mike Johnson for kicking off the review of the notice of proposed rulemaking related to the asset management plans. We'll be continuing that during the meeting on the 9th. Our focus is really going to be geared towards two definitions, but as they apply to the notice of proposed rulemaking. And that would be climate change and extreme weather events. Naturally, there's a lot of risk within both of those and within the sections, but really that's the focus, is looking at how those things are applied to risk management within the proposed rules. I think that I'm planning on spending about 45 minutes at our next meeting going over that in detail, but also I'm probably move that AI topic up. We're going to be having a presentation for 10 to 15 minutes on the Text.AI strategic plan, being that they're one of the first DOTs out of the gate. And as time permits, we'll get into website updates during the next meeting, but I don't think that time will permit. And doing so, we all have a known deadline to get comments back on the NPRM to Anna. My internal deadline will be, I'm shooting for December 13th. And what I'll do, Christos, is make sure you are copied on my notes and comments to Anna, and as well as Mike Johnson and Ryan.
Correct.
That concludes my update. It's all about Monday in the NPRM.
Excellent. Thank you, William. Michael has taken the lead with the Asset Management Subcommittee on the commenting.
Good afternoon, and thank you. As was mentioned, yesterday we had a 2-hour session on the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, and we walked through the notice section by section and had a nationwide discussion, and that really helped William, myself, and Ryan collect notes, as you know, so we can put together a comprehensive AASHTO response. If you missed that session, fear not, it was recorded, and Anna is feverishly working on getting it posted on the TAM portal, along with the PowerPoint that that broke down all of the sections of the NPRM. So if you missed it, go to the TAM portal soon, and you should be able to watch that if you want to see it. As far as other subcommittee activities, trying to think, since our last quarterly meeting, we have a new vice chair. I don't know that I have announced it. Maybe it was announced previously, but I'm fortunate to have Justin Bruner joining the subcommittee on asset management as the vice chair. And so just want to let everyone know that Justin's now part of that asset management subcommittee. As far as the subcommittee itself, we have had a flurry of activity of late. The most recent, or one of the most recent, was the publication of our synthesis on annual consistency reporting practices of the states. That is now was formally published on the TAM portal. There's a link, Anna's on it. There's a link in the to the subcommittee yesterday. But if you're interested in what states have been doing on annual consistency reporting, we have a pretty nice synthesis that was done with a whole slew of volunteers. They're all acknowledged inside the report. You know, the subcommittee is only as good as the members and the participants that volunteer their time. So certainly want to acknowledge them. That's out there. What is coming really soon is the Transportation Asset Management Resource Guide. This work is completed. It includes about 125 different transportation asset management, transportation performance management, and related links to previously published research, webinars, or other available information that would help folks that are trying to explore different areas of asset management. So I think that'll be a really great resource. It includes key websites, dashboards, and other things in the resource guide. Then let's see, did I hit everything? Two more things, sorry. On December 16th, Monday, 16th of December, we will be hosting our regularly scheduled subcommittee meeting. In that meeting, we will be going through the results from the annual State of the Practice of Asset Management survey. We sent that out nationwide with support of TRB and Federal Highways. We had over 100 respondents. And so, you know, we're kind of culling through that, trying to glean information to help inform future research and possible activities of the subcommittee. And then finally, I just want to put a quick plug in. Next summer, we will be jointly hosting with Federal Highways the National Conference on Transportation Asset Management in Illinois. The conference is being organized through a contract with Iowa State University and Omar Smadi. We are developing not only the conference, but also a peer exchange that's being planned for the day following the conference. And the subcommittee's working on all of that. So lots of activity, but I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I believe these are all the updates that we have from the subcommittees and task forces. Any questions for any of our, working group and subcommittee and task force leads? Seeing none. Lori, do we have any hands up? I don't see.
No hands up.
Okay. With that, then may I please turn it over to our secretary, Karen Miller, to recap our action items?
So, had a great discussion. I'll include a link. I know Lori's got a link to that most recent TRB publication that they do every year of the critical issues facing us today. The other thing I wanted to point out is if there is a task force or subcommittee you or any of your staff may be interested in attending or getting more information about, there's no special criteria. You don't have to be a member. You don't have to be, anyone can attend any of these subcommittee meetings, task force meetings. So I encourage you to find people that can attend these, see if it's of interest to them, and then they can get involved if it's something that they're interested in. So that's basically it.
Thank you, Karen. And that concludes our program for today. Thank you again to all our speakers and attendees today. And remember that the notes and materials from this meeting will be posted on the TPM portal. Also, make sure to check out the fall 2024 TPM newsletter, which arrived in your email on Tuesday. The theme is Improving Safety with Performance Management. There's also a link included on this slide. And we hope that you will join the 2 subcommittee meetings that we spoke about earlier on Monday and on Tuesday for a discussion on the NPRM for asset management. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We'd love to hear back from you as well with more thoughts about the discussion that we had with our CEO panel today. So, thank you.